Hi everyone, I'm Kerri Mitchell. I'm one of two instructional coaches at the Larimer campus. I wanted to take a little time in this video just to talk with you about my perspective on focusing on the essentials in your class. Whether you're thinking about the remaining couple of weeks in this semester, or whether you're looking ahead to summer, potentially fall, as we think about teaching remotely, possibly, you may have to keep thinking about what are the essential things in my class, what am I going to focus on in my course, and how am I going to get students to do that learning. So when you put your class online and move to remote learning, you may have been asked to think about what are the essentials, what are those things that are most important that are left in the class that I absolutely need students to focus on and work on in order to feel as though they have met the key outcomes for this course. Okay, so you may have had to bring some of that into clearer focus than you've had to do before when you just had more time, when your schedule was more flexible. We are up against certain challenges now that have just forced us as teachers to say, okay, if I have to make choices and get rid of stuff, what are the things I absolutely need to keep? What are those essential components in my class? So ask yourself, what is it that you ended up keeping and why? To some extent, you may have ended up keeping things that just felt more logistically possible. So maybe you couldn't facilitate a certain project in an online environment, but you probably also made choices based on the value of the outcome itself. So there may have been things that you looked at and thought, well, this is really neat or cool, and if I had time, we would do this, but it's not really getting at the key outcome in the course. And so I'm going to let that go, okay? So this is really an important process, even though you're doing it, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself with my slides here, even though you're doing it kind of on the fly in a pressured situation. This is really a process that a lot of us who think about course design go through regularly when we're working with people on redesigning their courses. It's really about getting clear on those outcomes. And Wiggins and McTee in their book, Understanding by Design, talk about this as enduring understanding. So students are not likely to remember most of the information that they come across in our class. I think the research suggests that maybe 10% of it, if we're lucky, they will carry forward with them and use and apply and build on. And those are what we call the enduring understandings. Those are the things that are going to stick with students in a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Well, as the teacher and the course designer, you get to have a say in what those enduring understandings are. What are those most important things that rise to the top for your course? What are the things that you want students to be able to remember or use in a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Those are the enduring understandings. So now is a time to really help yourself get clear on what are those enduring understandings, what are those outcomes, and what material in my class serves those outcomes, and what material is just kind of extra, that thing that students might call busy work. So I like to think of this as a time to clean out your closets. There are all kinds of things in our closets, and some of them have more importance than others. You have that favorite pair of jeans that you wear 3 times a week. You're certainly not going to get rid of those. But maybe you have that green shirt that's been hanging in the closet for 5 years, and you're not even sure why it's still in there, but you can't really part with it. So this is a time where we can really make some of those hard choices and ask ourselves, what are the things we have in our course that are really serving those larger outcomes that we care the most about? And what are the things in our class that are just kind of there and maybe cluttering things up? So why do our classes become cluttered? I think a lot of us feel like we have too much stuff or content to cover. If you're a history teacher, you have hundreds of years of history. If you're a nursing teacher, you have a ton of material to get through in one semester before students go out and become nurses. So some of us just face that pressure of feeling like we have too much stuff that we need to cover in our class. Some of us inherited a course design that may have already been too ambitious to begin with, where we're racing through information with students and we feel like we need to do it all. Some of us have accumulated things over and over the semesters where, we find a cool video clip or we come across a new text and we just keep adding things to our course without really trimming things back. So why is that a problem? Why can't we just clutter up our closets? Well, it's a problem because there are real limitations on how much the brain can actually learn. We know from brain science that making long-term memories in such a way that we can retrieve them and apply them meaningfully in the future is a task that takes a lot of physical work inside of our brains. And so simply covering all this information is not the same thing as learning it, right? So if we're racing students through all of this information, if our class is bloated and we're taking students through too much, they're going to be even less effective learners than if we were taking the time to let them dig in. Also, it's a problem because we as teachers have automatized our content and skills to the point where we think our course material is easy. Of course we do. We've spent years studying it. We care about it. We're intrinsically motivated to learn about it. Every semester we learn about it more and better. We make new connections to it. Of course our material is easy, but our students are coming to us every semester as novices. They're trying to put two simple blocks together, and we're over here building these amazing architectural designs because our brains are functioning at a much higher level with the material that we are expert at. So we really need to think about what it's like for our students to come into class and have to make new connections that are at a very basic novice level. What does that feel like, and how can we design appropriately for that? I think a lot of us too have a very antiquated notion of what rigor is. We believe, maybe from our own experiences going through school or what society has told us, that rigor means it's really hard and difficult, that there's a quantity of work there, enormous amount of workload, that just makes it feel almost impossible. If we're not suffering, then it's not rigorous. That's a very outdated version of rigor. It does not complement the science of learning or how brains actually learn. Rigor is not making it harder for students. It's giving students challenging situations to feed their analytical, complex thinking, their critical thinking, providing support along the way, giving them just the right supports that they need to grow. Rigor is still making things challenging for students, but not in the way that we've always traditionally done so. So I think this is a really exciting time for us to dive into our closets to see what's there, to make some hard choices about what it is that we think is actually serving those enduring understandings, those bigger, more important outcomes in our class, and what are those things that we have just let clutter up our course, those things that are not helping students move toward proficiency at those key outcomes. Hopefully, if you take this advice, you will find that your course feels a lot more like this for your students' experience, and that your students are experiencing less of this. If this is the kind of work you're interested in doing, conversations that you're interested in having, please feel free to reach out to your campus instructional coaches. At Westminster, we've got Joe and Brandon. At Boulder, we have Catlin online for at least 3 more weeks. We have Allison. And at the Larimer campus, you've got me, Kerri Mitchell, and Eric Salahub. We would all be happy to help you with this very important work. Thanks, everyone.